Hi there. I'm Smita Murthy, Managing Partner at Opencliff Partners. We're a product advisory and consulting firm. We help startup founders and CEOs scale up products through advisory and interim or fractional product leadership. Second, we augment product leaders in mid to large size companies with achieving their positive business and customer outcomes by helping them with that third party perspective that often gets business cases approved. Last but not the least, we provide product managers with career advice. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the podcast, Cross Functional Perspectives on what it takes to build successful products across domains and industries. I interview leaders from various functions with whom I've worked with to build and launch great products and the lessons we learn along the way. Today, I'm thrilled to host Leslie Robertson. Leslie is a principal at Communicate for Results, where she advises tech startups and provides executive coaching for up-and-coming tech leaders. She also teaches at the University of Washington College of Engineering's Leadership Development for Women. She is a former VP of Engineering at Oracle, where she helped scale Oracle Cloud infrastructure from 50 to 10,000 employees and led user and developer experience. Prior to that, she was head of product, developer experience, documentation, and developer relations at Stripe, where she was responsible for launching Stripe apps, the Stripe app marketplace, and the open source availability of MarkDoc, Stripe's industry-leading authoring environment. There's so much we're going to talk about, Leslie. First of all, welcome.
Thank you. I need to make one little correction in the way you talked about my Stripe role, because I was not head of Stripe product. I was head of Stripe product experience, which is a different thing. So just to be super clear.
Sounds good. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Welcome to the show. And why don't we start off by talking about a fun fact about you?
Sure. So I live in the San Francisco Bay Area now. I've lived here since 1989. But I was actually raised in the former Panama Canal Zone. And I'm a fourth generation Panama Canal Zonian. My great grandfather was part of the construction effort, and the family's been there ever since. I didn't live in the United States until I came to college.
Did not know that. I had no idea. That's very interesting. And I think you're probably the first person I've met from the Panama Canal Zone. So, yay, always something new. Wonderful. So Leslie, let's just get started. First of all, Leslie and I worked together at Oracle Health. We were the first few executives that were brought in to build this division of Oracle. Oracle had been in healthcare life sciences for a long time, but this was a separate group that was created. And we had some fun times there, didn't we?
We did. I think you preceded me. I think you were there when I got there. So you were there before me. I came in after the Cerner acquisition. So that was a huge, part of what I was involved in, was getting that team, that user experience team in particular, integrated into what Oracle Health was trying to do.
Absolutely, but your experience also spans engineering in the OCI side of the house. So you're a longer term Oracle person than I was.
Yes, so that was my third tour with Oracle.
That's a good way to put it. So I think I'm very excited to have you on the show because you bring a lot of the dimensions of building products that you've done in your past. One, engineering, user experience, documentation, all the different versions, however we call it, technical publications, learning experiences, whatever we want to call it. So I'm truly excited to learn about those experiences, and also for our audience to see how all of these different elements come together to truly have successful products. So with that said, tell me more about your role while we were at Oracle Health, and what do you remember most about our interaction from them.
Sure. So I would just preface it by saying you can't be in tech as long as I've been in tech and not gain at least some experience with nearly every function out there. So I started my career as a product documentation person. Obviously, that touches everything. And eventually I led most of the most of the functions that you mentioned were things that I led. And I think it was precisely that sort of Swiss Army knife um, capability that had Oracle bring me back a third time to work on Oracle Health when we worked together. And like I said, a really key so Oracle had just spent a great deal of money acquiring Cerner. And with that came a bunch of talent, a bunch of capabilities. Um, and there was certainly a dream and a vision for what Oracle wanted to use all of that to bring to the market. At the point that I was involved, the company was very much going through the pains of integrating a new organization into an organization that was itself only forming, and trying to find that sort of, this is your way, this is our way, what is the middle way that we together are going to forge in order to get a thing done. So a huge part of what I did while I had responsibility for user experience, a huge part of what I was involved in doing was inventorying what the existing capabilities were in the Cerner products that we had just acquired, what the existing capabilities of the Cerner staff were, figuring out what the gaps were, and trying to make a plan to fill them. So it was as much a a people challenge as a product challenge, and trying to do them simultaneously, as uh, is a fun challenge. And that was the context that I recall you and I really interacting. Was I think you were doing a sort of a similar activity in your world.
Yeah.
Um, and I was doing it sort of across the whole Oracle Health suite, since my team was embedded with every product Oracle Health made. Um, so yeah, it was playing a tennis match with about 50 balls at once, was kind of my recollection of it. Many things in play at any given time, and trying to weave them all together gracefully, quickly, efficiently, and with sufficient rigor to not have to rebuild it all again later, right? So
Absolutely.
that's my recollection.
Yeah, yeah, and you're absolutely right. I love that example of 50 tennis balls, trying to play tennis with 50 tennis balls coming at you. It was a period of a lot of, like you said, blending of
Yes.
established organizations while we were still trying to build products, launch products, while cultures were blending, while people were blending,
And
and
while we were still trying to keep very important customer commitments that had already
correct.
been made. So that was the real challenge. Had it been a blank, a blank slate or a bare field, you can move very quickly. But if you have to move within the constraints of existing customer contracts, that becomes a whole different exercise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll tell you what I remember most about our interaction. And I think I mentioned to you when we spoke earlier. So you were new, like you said, I was there already. You came in, you were new to me, even though you were not new to Oracle. And I think you said, "Oh, is there a product strategy, a vision document?" And I'd asked for that when I came in, and there wasn't one, so I had created one with my team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now, in hindsight, looking that you now do communication as sort of that differentiator in leadership.
Yep.
um, your comment was, "This is the clearest document I have read." And I hold it dear to my heart even today, because it's a huge compliment coming from you. And so that's what I remember definitely of our interaction amidst all the tennis balls coming at us.
I remember that too, Smitha, because it was a good document. It was a clear document. it asserted a clear vision, and it gave people something to sort of grab onto in what was a very chaotic environment, not due to anyone's fault, but just whenever you bring that many things together at once at high speed, having something you can all point to and say, this is what we're doing, is
Yeah.
incredibly valuable. And you were one of the few people who had actually gotten to that point of rigor, if you will. So yeah, good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely. So moving on, tell me about like we're talking B2B enterprise SaaS products here,
Sure.
right? And that's the predominant focus I've had throughout my career, as have you, I think.
Yep.
So tell me about your favorite product that you've helped start or build or grow, that you're fond of, and what made it special.
Yeah, that would have to be Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Um, that was a very much a career defining experience for me, mostly because we were growing so quickly that I got to do a bunch of things that I had never gotten to do before, and do them, like learn and come up to speed, practically overnight, and make it happen. And that is the type of environment that I personally really thrive in. I'm very much a startup person at heart. And OCI at that time, it wasn't called OCI then. It had a code name, and it was a little kind of skunkworks team inside of Oracle. Only 50 people when I started.
Wow. Mhm.
And by the time I left, we had scaled out to 10,000 people and built a major public cloud. So it's always near and dear to my heart. The crew of people that came together that make it happen were unparalleled in terms of the rigor they brought, the passion they brought, the hard work they put in, the camaraderie that was formed. It was all, we had a very strong purpose, a very strong vision, and we managed to stay pretty well aligned, as we scale. As you know, hyperscale is hard, right? In any situation, hyperscale is hard. It presents what, Clay McGurk used to call success problems, that are sometimes hard to solve and can sometimes sink a team. In OCI's case, that didn't happen.
Right.
And so I have a lot of very fond memories of coming together to get stuff done. And, did we always get it right? No, but we had a value about iterating, that eventually we got it right. And yeah, I learned so much. I will always be proud of that work. Something large and important in the world exists that many, major businesses and services now run on, that didn't exist when we started. So that will always be compelling and powerful for me.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. So, and that's not an experience too many people have. That kind of hyperscale. It's
It is
it's
not.
it's a special gift. It's a special
Yes,
gift you've been given,
it
right?
is.
So,
Very much so. A opportunity of a lifetime is the way I put it. And I mean, I made the most of it, no
yeah,
question. But it wasn't all me, right? It was
of
the
course.
opportunity. It was the people that were assembled, and it was interesting because there was a lot of question at that point. At this point, AWS and Google Cloud were pretty well established, and there was a lot of like, why are you guys even trying to enter the market at this point? This has been done.
Right.
And, we talked a lot about second mover advantage there, right? Because we got to see the mistakes that, other clouds, not put it this way, not mistakes, but decisions other clouds had made and how those had panned out. We got to be in the reactive position rather than the first mover, position, which has its advantages, but there are very distinct advantages to standing back, letting others try it first, and then jumping in and going, okay, here's how we really do it. And we had a bunch of talent, coming in. We very much went after talent that had experience with other, large public clouds. And so they came in hungry to, yeah, we did it that way here, but here we're going to do it this way. And it's going to work better because, XYZ. And that was a pretty powerful answer to why are you doing this. Um, yeah, it was. I learned so much every single day, and that's always my happy place.
Yeah, no, no. I think for the audience, you made a very, very important point, which is um, everyone's dream is to have that unicorn product, right? Like that
Hmm.
unicorn product that is a first mover, market creating, etc. But don't dismiss the second mover advantage, right? Um,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely. Refinement is important, and the second mover gets to refine.
right, right, absolutely. And I think with the first mover, what we don't see oftentimes is several others that failed and only one may have succeeded. Um,
Right.
and then the second mover has the advantage of observing all of this while they're still building a compelling product that gets rid
Exactly.
of all of this, all of the quirks or things that customers don't really love,
Exactly.
and building things that customers actually love into the product. So very well said. Thank you for sharing that.
I'm
Um,
sure you've heard that quote, Smitha, about I never lose, I only learn, or I only win, or I learn. A-
oh,
And
I
that
love
is,
that.
I think, the kind of most pithy way to sum up that second mover advantage. You can, you can learn. You can always learn.
Yep. Perfect. Perfect. So what were some of the, like, so when with the second mover building out, having this hyperscale, what were some key metrics that you tracked to determine that OCI was successful?
Really, at the time I was there, it was all about adoption. That was really the only metric that mattered at that point. Obviously, there are technical metrics, performance, so on and so forth. But from a business success standpoint, it was adoption. And it was an interesting period of time because Oracle already had a public cloud. They had a lot of customers on that public cloud. They had a lot of contract commitments on that public cloud. And they were running that public cloud while we were building OCI. Now, there was a point at which OCI reached a point of maturity and sort of readiness to where and scalability. That was really the kind of the major. I mean, there were many things, but the cloud being scalable was kind of a really critical factor. And when we had sort of proven the value of what we were building and had several services up and running, had regions up and running, that was the point at which Oracle pivoted to sort of draw down the public cloud they had built and migrate people over to OCI. Um, and it was very challenging because you've got a bunch of legacy customers who are not that happy about being moved, needing to sort of start over, if you will. So we
Mhm.
had to help them do that and make that experience a good one. Meanwhile, going out and attracting new clients, new business, new onboarding, and so that challenge of how do you make the front door to this situation appealing and workable, that fell squarely on my team because I was running user and developer experience at this point. And so um, two things happened on my watch. Number one, we created a completely new onboarding experience that no longer led. There was a point in time where customers were led through a sort of very dystopian Candyland sort of entry path where they had to go through several different authentication layers that didn't look the same. They had to mess around with permissions across two different environments. It was not a good onboarding experience. And so under my watch, that all needed to be brought together, streamlined, and turned into one coherent experience that did not require extensive white glove handholding anymore, which it did in the early days.
Yeah.
And then we needed to build basically a free tier, right? So that people could, try before they buy. And again, do it needing to, be contacted by a sales rep or, have some sort of white glove onboarding experience. And so we got that done as well. And obviously, Smitha, when you're bringing together a bunch of complicated things, all of which have hundreds of people behind the scenes working on them, you have to, how do I put it? You're not working with a blank slate, right? You have to make some concessions and compromises and build roadmaps and backlogs that will address those concessions and compromises later.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm extremely proud of the fact that we actually did manage to braid all of these individual things into one coherent user onboarding experience and ship a free cloud at which every single attendee of Oracle Open World in that year was whitelisted without incident. So I'm proud of that. That was a lot of not just a lot of technical work, but a lot of diplomatic work, if you will, getting folks to work together, getting folks to make decisions that were aligned with the mission rather than with their, sort of parochial interests. Is it the ideal environment in which to develop UX? No. Was it the right way to do it at the time? Absolutely. And we got it done. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah. So a couple of questions on that. I know we were talking metrics and onboarding, the customer onboarding and retention. That was like the big one. But you mentioned something important. So in a time when you're trying to get to market, you are the second mover. So there are other competitive products that people can pick from.
Yep.
So when that pressure to get to market is there, how was it doing UX? You said you finally managed to do this excellent onboarding experience, weaving together all these different things that were suboptimal, as it were. When you have pressure on go to market or time to market, how do you balance the rigor that's required for user experience research, user experience design? How do you balance that?
Two things come to mind in that situation in particular, and I think they are actually fairly universal. Number one is relentless user focus. That gets lost a surprising amount inside of engineering organizations when they're just trying to get something done, right? We often become hyper focused on, is it going to be possible to implement? Is it going to be easy to implement? As opposed to forget us, always be thinking about the customer, always be looking at what the customer experience is. So in terms of your previous question around metrics, for example, time to onboard, time to value is always in my mind, once you're past the, like, do we have, how many customers do we have, which at the end of the day is the most important metric. The next one is always time to value for that customer. That's the one that, if you lose sight of that or stop thinking about that for even a moment, you're going to make bad decisions. So always bringing those conversations back around to, yes, but what is the user perspective? How is the user experiencing this? And I'll give you an example. When you're building something where there's a lot of sort of, so in OCI's case, for example, there's a lot of different services, right? There's and different teams that maybe aren't talking to each other all that often are building these services. And we are presenting, and I don't want to use Oracle OCI is, a real example here because I've seen the same problem in many, many companies, both ones I've worked in and ones I, consult with. Teams get siloed and therefore experiences get siloed. And unless there is some sort of forcing function that requires the people building the stuff to get in and look at the customer experience end to end. In other words, try to actually walk through a use case. This is where, if I may put in a plug for, my sort of forever tribe, this is where documentation people are invaluable. because they typically are the ones who, from beginning to end, are marching through an experience that may take them, again, through some dystopian candy land of all these little siloed lands that don't quite knit together into a good customer experience. Often it's your documentation people that are surfacing that, surfacing those places where the lily pads are too far apart. And so, in terms of, I won't say organizational design, but sort of how you run a large organization or an organization with a tendency towards silos, you have to force those moments, right? You can't put it all on the shoulder of, what is often one overburdened writer. You have to actually make an organizational moment where everyone is required to live in the customer's shoes for a day, 2 days, 3 days, and really see the friction that the customers encounter. This is done today, as far as I can tell, almost nowhere. It's like it, and it's so basic. That's, or it's not done as a matter of common practice, put it that way. There are organizations that do it very well. So that would be my kind of my key differentiator is, are you at all times keeping your eye relentlessly on what is the customer experience, and are you forcing the leaders that are responsible for building that experience, are you forcing them to come together on some regular cadence to actually check that the complete end-to-end experience they're shipping, regardless of internal silos, politics, organization, is that end-to-end experience good?
Yeah, yeah, no, completely agree. The silo is often too often a reality that has to somehow be bridged and that comes with relentless focus on the end user's experience.
Right.
And
Often we expose our silos to our customers, and that's not fair to our customers.
and customers don't care. They're not paying all that money
No,
for us to sort out our stuff. So
that's right.
anyway, great. What do you think? So we've talked about OCI and the complexity of hyperscale, and the different things that were done to make it a successful
Yeah,
product.
and they're things that any hyperscaling organization, I've been in several, any organization encounters those. They're fairly universal.
Correct. So tell me about what's the biggest challenge you faced building products? Like, I mean, I know that's a fairly broad question, and there are many challenges, but like, what would you say is the biggest challenge you've encountered building products, Oracle
Well,
otherwise?
it's the so I can answer that actually pretty easily. Um, the biggest challenge in nearly every place I've ever worked or ever consultant is the basis for my business. The biggest challenge is always communication. Great ideas, poorly communicated, do not come to life. This ability to get, through good communication, get people aligned, get people marching in the same direction toward the same goal, iterating on that goal to make sure that it remains the right goal. That is the key differentiator, and frankly, the key challenge. In nearly every environment I've ever been in. And so if you can solve that, and what's interesting to me is often, we get really hyper focused on, the end, like engineering, the technical aspect of what it is we're trying to do. And yes, obviously that's incredibly important, and bad architecture and bad coding, that's all going to result in bad things. But without that communication piece, it doesn't matter how good any of that is. If you can't get your staff marching in the right direction, doing the right things, knowing how to make decisions rapidly, knowing how to solve disagreements quickly, to arrive at something everyone can, agree and commit to, and all of that, is the precursor to anything that you build, whether it be a
Absolutely.
boat, a
Yep.
cake, or a, in Stripe's case, new financial infrastructure for the internet. If you don't solve your communication problem, you're not gonna, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think some organizations get this right. And I would venture and say that organically happens oftentimes in individual contributor level roles.
Yes, it's easy small. It's easy at small scale.
Correct.
It gets
Correct.
harder and harder and harder at wide scale. And accomplishing it actually takes a lot of time. And as
Right.
we both know, in a startup environment, you're busy chasing the lifeblood of your business. Often senior executives don't have time to actually put into thinking deeply about how they communicate, what they communicate, how
Right.
often they repeat themselves or need to repeat themselves, how
Yeah.
they check comprehension. That's all time consuming activity. And it frequently falls by the wayside. The bigger an organization, I guarantee the worse the communication becomes, or it becomes very one way. I've seen companies do it where basically they're running a radio station and there's no real feedback loop, right? And we both know if you're trying to actually galvanize people to get complicated, difficult things done, the communication must be bidirectional. I don't mean it's a democracy because that's very slow, but and doesn't always result in the right things. But it does need to be, there needs to be a two-way loop to make so that executives know they're still solving the right problem and people know they're still working on the right things.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I'm now going to talk about I'm going to bring up a special topic, which I know is very close to your heart and mine, which is women in tech, women in leadership,
Yep.
and leadership during times of chaos. I think you and I lived it.
Oh
So
yeah.
maybe that topic we covered. Uh, so let's talk about your work with University of Washington's College
Sure.
of Engineering,
Yep.
and tell me about your experiences working with women in tech and leadership.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is a fun gig. And just to be clear, I'm not on the staff of University of Washington or anything like that. I'm a volunteer so there's a program within the College of Engineering called WISE, Women in Science and Engineering. Um, and within the WISE sort of overall program, there is a leadership development program geared specifically at women with ambition to become leaders in tech. And that's the cohort that I work with. And we get together twice a year. It is usually a group. I'm trying to think. Like the first year, it was maybe 15 young women. The second year, it was more like 30. So it grows year over year. Obviously, all of it depending on funding. If you're inclined to donate, please donate. I think they always need. I think they always need help. But these are young women coming from across engineering disciplines. So these are not just software people. There are young women interested in aircraft design and biotech things. And I can honestly say every time I spend time and it's usually a 2 or 3 day, stint with them. Every time I spend time with them, I walk away feeling better about the world and better about the future. These women are smart, fierce. If you get a chance to hire one of them, do it. You will not be sorry. They're diverse. They are so bright and brilliant and working on such interesting problems that I think when I was their age, I didn't even realize existed. So it's just really fun. And what I specifically work with them on is negotiation. Um, that is a skill that women often are not taught or even encouraged to do as children. And so really getting into the brass tacks of how does it work? And then how does it work for us as women? Because I'm not a big fan of, living outside of your authenticity. And so I really encourage them to live within their authenticity and build an effective negotiating style that works with them, not against them. And frankly, just getting them on board with the idea that you must negotiate. And the way I typically frame it for them at the very beginning is as a hire. I've hired hundreds of people in the course of my career. And I always watch for, do they negotiate? And I think as women, the message is sometimes don't ask for more, right? You're lucky to get what you have, so don't ask for more. And I tell them that is an absolute deal killer for me, because I need you to be able to negotiate on my behalf. I need you out as the face of my business, pushing hard, making the right things happen for my business. And so if you can't even do that for yourself, that tells me you're not you're not the right member for my team, because I need, fierce negotiators, authentic, kind, good, but fierce, out there making the right things happen for my business. This is almost always new information to them. This always results in a really, oh, wow, that makes sense. Like, it's like you can see the light come on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we get into the real brass tacks of how do you do it? How do you prepare for it? How do you navigate through it? How do you follow up? When do you do it? That all these sort of nuts and bolts and brass tack topics that young women typically do not get exposed to. So that's one thing I work with them on. And then the other thing I work with them on is power dynamics, understanding how to read the power dynamics in an organization, understanding how to navigate them, understanding where and how you, again, operating from your authentic gifts and talents and interests and passions, understanding where you can sit in that sort of system to make the right things happen, to make power land where it should. And so, again, it's none of it is rocket science. None of it is engineering. All of it is communication and learning to read situations, learning to think about situations, and making authentic kind of strategic plans for how to approach situations. So it's a lot of role play. I typically have them work. We're not working in hypotheticals. We actually like what's going on in your life where you need to make a change, where you might need to negotiate. And it's everything from my first job to an internship to cabinet space in my dorm room. I mean, it runs the gamut, but the skills are completely transferable. So, and these are the places where again and again, we all know, women are every bit as talented as men in any field you can imagine.
Yeah.
What is sometimes missing is that confidence and the know-how to do the softer skill kinds of things, right? And so that's really what I am always looking for opportunities to work on with these young women, is just those unspoken game rules that unless you speak about them, they may always remain just out of reach, and they can really slow you down and cause you to not advance as quickly as you otherwise might.
Yeah, I love it. This is such a topic that's very personal, very close to my heart. When I look back at my own career, I was one of 3, 4 women in my graduating class from engineering and in computer science. And let's not talk about time stamping, because that was a long time
Yeah,
ago.
no, we don't need to go there.
We don't need to go there. We look pretty damn good right now. So that, and I feel like, Leslie, you talked about teaching these young women these skills. I would assert that needs to be refreshed throughout one's career, because I
Yes, it
think
does.
too often women forget that as they progress in their careers. As let's say they're having babies and they've been home and they have to come back to the workforce.
Yep.
Many different points in their lives, I think it needs to be reinforced. One example I have where, something like this worked is when I was at ADP, we had something called a mentoring circle. There
Hmm.
was a forum for women executives, but you had
Hmm.
to be a VP or higher to be part of that. So to increase the reach of that group, we created these mentoring circles. So I was running a mentoring circle for my business unit there was no level requirement. It's anyone who wanted to focus on their own careers,
Hmm.
right? And so we got together, I want to say it was about 10 or 12 people. We met once a month at lunch.
Hmm.
We talked about what is it, I mean, we didn't even have a pre-chosen topic. We said, what is something that you all want to work together on?
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
it was a circle. It was intentionally a circle. So
Hmm.
it didn't matter that I was the senior most person, or there was like an entry level somebody. It didn't matter. It was a circle. We were learning from each other,
Yep.
and we had guest speakers, and so on. I think it just gave women that hour at lunch once a month
Yep.
to focus on themselves and to kind of reignite that passion, to focus on, hey, I actually did this, so let me do something about it, right? Let me
Yep.
progress. That's what I want. um, and I think, I'm proud to say over 50% of those people that were in the circle either got promoted or had expanded roles in that after that 1 year. So
Nice. That's an
there's
effective program. That's great.
right, it was
Yeah.
something. So I would say I love the fact that you're doing this. We'll talk about that more, because this is something, it's a topic that's deeply personal for me. But I think I would say just refreshing that throughout one's career is just as important.
Absolutely. And I will, as any teacher will tell you, you always learn more by teaching than by doing nearly anything else. And one of the first things you learn is that whatever you're doing or saying is absolutely not one size fits all. So I'll give you an example. I was leading a workshop for this, for UW around, or for the WISE program around negotiation. And I'm, giving them all of this, like, here's how you do it, here's the strategy, here's when it's important to do it, da, da, da. And at the break, a young woman in full hijab came to me and said, I believe everything you're saying, but I can tell you, in my environment, in my home,
Yeah.
what you're saying is not possible. That won't work. Let me tell you what my constraints are. And can you help me come up with a different strategy? Well,
Wow.
hey, like,
Yeah.
humbling moment, because I'm like, okay, yeah, everything I just told you would be absolutely the wrong way to proceed in your environment. In your environment, you're going to need to work it this other way. And together we sort of came up with a strategy for the situation. I always try to personalize this for the situation she was facing.
Yeah.
But again, that's not an environment I come out of. And so I was not accounting for the very unique, needs, skills, and requirements that are, that she needed to be successful in what she was trying to do.
Yeah.
So I always, um, it's always just important to listen. It's always important to walk in assuming you don't know everything. Bring all your wonderful experience to bear, bring your confidence to bear. All of that is important, but always remember the world is wide and there are many permutations of situations that you've never encountered and you can't even imagine. And so, like in just about any other, forum in life, listening more than you talk is key to making sure that you're actually solving the right problem. And that goes for products, that goes for engineering, that goes for just about anything. Make sure you're solving the right problem, and you learn that by listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great. So moving on to a different topic, changing gears on you. How is AI or Gen AI changing what you do, and how it affects products you have built in the past, or, just actually, I would be more keen on understanding how it affects what you do right now,
Sure.
which is hugely about communication. Right?
Absolutely. So yeah, my business is 100% built on helping people in any situation communicate better, right? Skill number one is listening. I'm a big one for authenticity. And the problem with AI, and AI, and I'm not down on AI. AI has many amazing, amazing potential, right? But the ways again, bringing it back down to my specific business, the ways I see AI borking people today is they're like, oh, AI will communicate for me. I can simply type whatever it is I need into, chat GPT, or, pick your favorite generator, and I'll get something that I can just, well, no, right? It's not authentic. It's not tailored. It may not be solving the right problem. It may be full of hallucinations and not even be correct. There is no substitute for putting time, thought, and effort into being a better communicator. Skillful use of AI can help you become faster at it, but you cannot rely on it to do the work for you. You simply cannot. There's always got to be a layer of your, blood, sweat, and tears in it to make it real, make it authentic, make it tailored, make it solve the right problem. And again, AI listens to everything and kind of listens to nothing, right? And so it's on us to do the actual listening to the real people, the real flesh and blood 3D people in front of us, to make sure we are connecting with them in the way that helps them be effective, be focused, meet expectations, understand what we're trying to do. You cannot rely on AI to do that for you.
Yep, absolutely. Well said. Love it. Last but not the least, last question, I promise. What do you have any book recommendations for our audience that
Yes,
has
I
helped
do.
you? Oh, you
Yes,
do, of
I do.
course.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I am a fan number one of anything Patty Azzarello has ever written. She's written 2 books that in my career have been incredibly important and valuable. The first one is called Rise. And it really is exactly what it sounds like. I forget what the subtitle is, but it's like how to, have a big career and still like your life, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but it's a playbook, right? And very effective. I can tell you it works because I followed it myself. The other book is called Move, and that is about getting organizations to change, right? Getting organizations to stop doing something one way and start doing it another, or stop focusing on one thing and start focusing on another. And it was interesting because at one job, I had my whole staff, I had a whole team of leaders reporting to me, and I had all of them read this book. And they all laughed. They had took a week to read it, and then we got together, at an offsite, and this book club was sort of part of that, and they all laughed and said, I understand why you like this book, because she sounds exactly like you. she talks like you, she said, does the same things as you, whatever. And so Patty is a friend, Patty had I was really a huge fan of her books before I ever met her in person, and we have since become good friends. But they were right. Patty and I think alike. And so I absolutely recommend those books because I know they work. They have worked for me, and they can work for you too.
That's awesome. And what's the last name again, Leslie? Patty?
Azzarello, Azzarello, Patty. Yeah.
Okay, got
And
it.
the books are Rise and Move. There are many wonderful books. There are many I could talk about, but I'm a huge book person. I'm a writer, so a huge book person. But those are the 2 that I return to over and over and over again for they're a touchstone for me. So I highly recommend them.
Love it. Love it. Wow, we covered a lot of topics in 40
We did.
something minutes. Um, Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. So a wealth of information from you with your experiences. Hopefully that benefits whoever listens to the podcast. What a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise, Smitha, it was a delight to reconnect with you. We overlap so briefly in Oracle
Yeah.
Health. It's really wonderful to me to be kind of back in touch with you and talking about stuff that matters. So thank
Yes.
you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And I'm sure we'll be talking more.
We will.
It was lovely having you on the show. Thank you all for listening. I'll talk to you soon.
Likewise. Thanks, Smitha. Take care.